Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Activetrack 4.0 and the APAS system on the brand new DJI Air 2S. So if you guys are interested in seeing if this drone could fly on its own and follow me through a forest, then stick around. And a bit of a spoiler alert, there may have been a crash. Okay, cool. So let's dive into this whole Activetrack 4.0 thing. So DJI basically says that the new Air 2S can follow you through, around, or anything, and it's their best system for tracking a subject that they have so far. They even have the new optical sensors on top of the Air 2S to see additional obstacles and try and fly around them. So what I did was that I went to a forest and I took the drone with me, and there was this trail. So I've already recorded this and been through the footage and stuff. So I'm gonna walk through the footage with you guys and talk over it play by play and basically tell you guys what was going through my head at the time and what the experience was like using Activetrack 4.0 in this forest and completely letting the drone fly on its own. So let's dive into the footage right now. Okay, so this is me at the beginning of the trail. I'm just here setting up the Activetrack to follow me. So I'm here just selecting myself as a subject, setting it to trace mode, and then I hit go, and then I just start walking. So I initially set the altitude to be pretty low just because I know that a lot of the branches in this trail are a little bit higher. So I did start off a little bit easier. So you'll notice that initially I'm looking back a lot just to make sure that the drone is still following me and it's still there. But after it made its way past those first couple initial branches, like I was pretty confident that it was going to do a good job of following me. So you'll notice that I'm actually not even looking back anymore, and I'm not really looking at my screen that often. Like I check it once in a while to make sure that the drone is still there, but you'll notice that it handled that turn perfectly and it managed to squeeze by those branches with absolutely no issues. And I'm just taking my time here. I'm walking through the forest, making sure that the drone is following me properly. Also, if you guys are interested to know, this footage has already been graded using my own Amazon LUT. So I recently uploaded that to Instagram as a story filter that you can use, but I graded this entire video using that Amazon LUT. So I look back here because I've decided that I'm going to start running since the walking was a little bit too easy. I want to see how the drone is going to perform at a faster speed, and it is going a little bit slower than I thought it would, but it's still keeping up with me and it's still avoiding everything and keeping me in center. Now, this part was pretty interesting because it avoided a branch and there was also another person that walked by. So here I look back to make sure that it's still following me as the subject, because one of the issues that I experienced with Activetrack 3.0 is that when a similar subject would walk by, the drone would sometimes switch its view to the other subject and think that it's me. And over here, there was obviously no issues. It kept me as the main subject. It didn't switch over to the other person, which was awesome. And as this turn comes up, you're gonna notice that the Activetrack 4.0 handles turns really well. And even in thicker areas like this of the forest, it tries to maintain the altitude that I set as best as it can. And it's just bobbing and weaving through all these branches. And this was the first run that I did through the trail. And as we come up to the trail, I think it did an awesome job the first time around. Okay, so that was my initial run through the forest trail, and I just had the drone follow me at a low altitude. So it was a pretty simple task. I didn't find any issues. I even ran at some parts. I had a second subject walk through the frame and Activetrack didn't switch over to that subject. So I would say the initial run was extremely successful, and I was very impressed with how the drone was able to follow me. I actually never felt so confident that a drone would be able to follow me through all these branches and these trees and not have to worry about having it crash. So on the way back, I decided to make things a little bit more challenging. So for the first half, I actually had the drone fly in reverse and try and mimic my movement as I walk towards it. So let's see how that worked out. Okay, so here I am again setting up Activetrack, and like I said, this time I'm having the drone stay in front of me, so it's gonna fly backwards. And I'm keeping a much sharper eye on it because I know that in Activetrack, when the drone flies backwards, it's only relying on those rear sensors, so it's a lot more tough for it to see what's around it. Now it's really interesting because as I come up to this turn, I notice that the drone is kind of now flying at my side. It's not directly in front of me anymore, and it's kind of waiting for me to get past it. So like you'll notice that it's kind of drawing backwards, and as soon as I go past it, it starts to follow me normally again, like it was through that first run through the forest. So clearly the preference for the drone when using Activetrack is for it to be behind you. And if you're going through a lot of turns and stuff, it's probably gonna try and get behind you because it's more comfortable flying in that orientation. So that was definitely a very interesting outcome of this specific test. Cool. So once I realized that I probably couldn't have the drone follow me backwards for the rest of the trail, just because there's a lot of turns and stuff, like I didn't want to risk having the drone fly to the side and not see some tree and then go right into it and then come crashing, I decided that I was going to put all of the front sensors to a more difficult test compared to the first run through in the forest that we had. So I set up the drone again to follow me from behind, except this time I had it set to a higher altitude. So this time it was going to be at the level of where all the branches and all the leaves and all those things are. So it was going to have a lot more obstacles to avoid. So let's see how that specific test turned out. Okay, so here I am again setting up Activetrack, and obviously you'll notice that the altitude is much higher, so it's had to dodge some branches immediately. And I actually started off by walking backwards this time because I know that there's a lot more branches up there, so I just wanted to make sure that the drone was going to be okay, that it did its job dodging those initial branches. And once I saw that it did, I let it do its own thing. So you're gonna notice that a lot of these branches that it's dodging are really, really slim and kind of hard to see. So it's very impressive that the drone is able to dodge these on its own. And you're gonna notice this part is especially dicey, and it did an amazing job. And I'm keeping a really close eye on it. Like I'm walking backwards here, I almost walked into the forest. But as I come around this turn and I walk around, you're gonna notice this branch coming up and boom. So right there, the drone hit a branch because it wasn't able to detect it for some reason. It was really thin. It bounced off the branch, it went left into the forest, and then it kind of just stopped and hovered there on its own. So once I saw that and I saw that the drone was still flying and had no issues, I decided that I was actually going to continue the test and I would inspect the damage to see if there was any later. And just as a bit of a spoiler alert, I checked out the drone, I looked at the damage, and there was none. So I was really, really impressed that the fact that even the props weren't damaged and the drone was able to halt and hover on its own after hitting something. So the APAS system is very smart. Once it hits something or something interrupts the flight, it completely halts in position because it doesn't want to continue flying and potentially risk damaging the drone. So again, once I saw that it had stopped and it was still flying and there was no issues, I decided to continue with the test. So we're gonna dive back into the footage and you're gonna notice that I'm reactivating Activetrack, and I actually continue to fly at the exact same altitude where all the branches and stuff were. So let's continue the test and see what happened. So here I am again, I'm setting up Activetrack and I'm increasing the altitude of the drone, and I'm just gonna continue having it follow me. So again, it's flying very, very close to these thin branches, and this branch that it dodged right now is actually thinner than the one that it hit. So I'm very surprised that the one that it hit, like it wasn't able to detect it. Is very surprising, especially as you see the drone navigate through this part of the forest where the branches are extremely, extremely thin, like definitely thinner than the one that I hit. So if you like rewind back and you take a look at right before the crash happened, those branches were definitely thicker than the ones that is dodging right now. Like these are extremely thin. I'm having a lot of trouble seeing them just watching this footage back. So as I get to the end of the trail, I was very interested to see if it would be able to make its way through these branches at this altitude, and it almost made it, but you're gonna notice that right here it gets stuck. So it's hovering between two branches right now and it refuses to move. So I tried to move backwards, I kept walking, I wanted to see if the drone would move, and it was not. So it was kind of just stuck there, and so I had to end up manually flying the drone out of there and then landing it. So overall, I would say that the experience and the tests that I performed on Activetrack 4.0 were pretty successful. So in most cases, the drone will follow you perfectly. it may run into an obstacle here or there if it's very hard for it to detect, but in my case there was no damage and the drone kept flying, so I didn't have to land it after it hit that branch to continue my test. So overall, I would say that Activetrack 4.0 and the APAS system are incredible tools that'll definitely allow you to do some autonomous drone flying that you never would have been able to do before. And that's the whole point of these new drones and these new systems. You want to try and explore new creative avenues. So I'm definitely going to be using Activetrack 4.0 and the APAS system to fly through some tricky areas and having the drone fly on its own. I think it opens up a bunch of new things that I can do, and I'm definitely excited to use these features together. And that's it for this video, guys. So hopefully you guys found it entertaining. You enjoyed that part where the drone had a little crash and kept flying, and hopefully you guys learned something new. And if you did, please leave a like at the bottom of the page, smash that like button. It really helps out the video. If you guys enjoyed the test that I performed with the Air 2S and you want to see more stuff like this, then definitely subscribe to the channel. I'm always doing drone and photography related content. Other than that, that's all I have for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one, and until then, keep creating.